Hi everybody, this is Jim, and welcome to another of Glenside Library's Quick Tips, quick technology videos. Today's topic is one that is often requested. We're going to talk about pivot tables in Microsoft Excel. As always, I'm in Excel 2019, but nothing I do here will not be backward compatible with 2016, probably 2013 as well. So what's a pivot table? A pivot table is a unique object in Excel that lets you look at your data in many different ways, to slice it, to dice it, to really narrow it down. Let's look at some sample data here. I have some fictional company data. We have 176 rows, 176 plus one header row, of all of our personnel, their employee IDs, their ages, male or female, education level, job roles, when they started, how long they've been with us, and their salaries. Looking at it like this, it's a little bit difficult to really glean anything. Now, we could sort the data in different ways, but that's kind of cumbersome. So one of the things that we can do is to create a pivot table. Now, to create one is simple enough. I just click anywhere within my data. It doesn't have to be A1, it doesn't have to be the whole thing selected, but I need to do a couple of things before I get started. First of all, I need to have a header row, like this. Nothing special, but they do have to have names because these are going to become fields for our pivot table. Secondly, you want to make sure you have consistent data, every row the same, no blank rows, no blank spaces. From then, we go to Insert, and here's Pivot Table. Now there is also recommended pivot tables, which are shortcuts, and we can look at those later, but for the time being, let's see how to do it from scratch. A couple of things. First, I click on it, and my dialog box comes up, and we see it has highlighted my entire range, and actually it's shown here, the name of the sheet, data, exclamation point, A1 through H177, that's our entire data range. The dollar signs mean that it is a fixed range. Now what does that mean? Well, what that means is if we add new employees and we want to update our pivot table, we are actually going to have to go back and reselect a new data range. But there's a way we can get around that. So I'm going to cancel here. And I'm going to suggest that if you have data where you think you will be adding rows, before you create a pivot table, create an Excel table object. From the Insert tab, we can go here. We can also click Control-T. I'm going to click Table. Where is the data for your table? It shows fixed A1 through H177, but trust me, you will be able to automatically grow the table simply by adding new rows. My table has headers is clicked, which is important. I'm going to click OK. And now we have a table object, which gets its own special tab. We've talked about tables before. And there's even a shortcut to do a pivot table from the Table tab. So I'm going to click on Summarize with Pivot Table here. Notice what we have. Select a table or range. That table or range is now Table 1, which is the table name up here. There are two places. I can either choose a new worksheet or an existing worksheet, so I can put it specifically where I want it. A lot of times, though, what we're going to do is to choose a new worksheet, and we can move the pivot table later. So I'm simply going to click OK. And this is what I get. This is actually a placeholder for the pivot table. And our pieces over here consist of our pivot table fields. Once again, these were our header row, right? Then we have a filters area, a columns area, a rows area, and a values area. So let's start. We want to look at our job roles. We want to see what kind of money we're spending, what kind of payroll we have in job roles. I click job role, and immediately Excel says, well, the data in that field, which was the column in our original data table, is text. So we're going to automatically put that into the rows area. Now, we don't have to. We can drag it anywhere. We can drag it into filters. Columns is a little bit unworkable. Values gets us a count, right? But we do want it in rows. Now let's look at salary. Once again, I can either click and drag to where I want it, or I can simply click it, and because it is a numeric, Excel says, well, we're going to do some sort of calculation. So we're going to put that in the values area. And notice here we have a sum. Now, do we want to see the sum? Maybe. But let's look at the averages for each of our job roles. To do that, we need to change our field settings. Now, notice up here in the Analyze tab of the pivot table, the active field is job role. If I click over here or up there, the active field is now called sum of salary. And there's a field settings button, which opens this up, but I'm going to cancel just because I want you to see that the same thing can be reached from down here. But honestly, the quickest way is simply to right-click. I right-click on anywhere in that field, so any of these sums, and I'm going to say, instead of summarize value by sum, let's do average. And the averages are kind of unwieldy because they go out to 5 decimal places, and we really don't need to see any. So let's take a look. Right-click, and there's a number format. Again, I could have gone through field settings, but this is quicker. I'm going to change it to number style. I'm going to say I don't want any decimal places because cents don't matter to me. And I am going to use 1000 separator. Click OK, and boom. At a glance, we can see the average salaries allocated to any of them. So we're going to stop here for now, and in our next session, we're going to look at the ways that we can improve and change this pivot table. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.